Hi, everyone. Welcome to Rock Bottom Syndicate. I'm your host, Joyce Strong. Rock Bottom Syndicate is about people who have a story to tell, to inspire others to consistently, persistently pursue their potential. Rock Bottom is an opportunity to learn, change course, tell your story to help others and help yourself. Hello, Terry. Welcome to Rock Bottom Syndicate.
Thank you, Joyce. Pleasure to be here.
It's so nice to have you here and an opportunity for me to hear you tell your story. Just for our audience, you are Terry Tucker. You're a motivational speaker and an author, and they can find you at motivationalcheck.com. All your connection that way. Is that the best way to reach you?
That's perfect.
Yeah. So I'm eager to hear your story. I really have heard little bits of it when we first met, but I'd love to hear it just as a whole.
Sure. As an adult, I've had certainly many different jobs in my life. When I graduated from college, I went to the Citadel in South Carolina. I got a job in the marketing department with Wendy's in their corporate office. From there, I moved to hospital administration. My wife and I got married and we moved to California, and unbeknownst to her, I dropped a bomb on her that, hey, I'd like to be a police officer.
Right.
And so, she married me when I was a suit and tie kind of, 8 to 5 guy. And now I was, working nights and weekends and birthday parties and anniversaries and all that kind of stuff.
You spent some time in Boston, I think, which is where I am.
Exactly. I got my master's degree from Boston University, and I attended Capital University Law School in Columbus. So yeah, Boston's a great city. I love Boston. So I've had all these different jobs in my life, and in 2012, I kind of felt like I was just like everybody else in the world. I was going about living my day, and about March of that year, I was coaching a high school basketball team, and I had a callus break open on the bottom of my foot. And I didn't really think much of it because I was on my feet a lot. And it didn't heal. I ended up going to a doctor, and, he gave me some pads, gave me some eventually antibiotics, and eventually said, you might have a cyst in there. We can take it out. So I said, yeah, let's get this behind me. And he ended up taking it out. And 2 weeks later, I get a call from him. And I knew this guy outside of just being my doctor. And he was very gregarious. He was very outgoing. And when he called, there was just this silence on the end of the phone. And I kept like, what's going on? What's wrong? And he said, you have a very rare form of melanoma that appears on the bottom of your hands, or the bottom of your feet, or the palms of your hands.
Wow.
He said only about 2,000 people in the United States get this form of melanoma every year. He said, I've been practicing for 25 years and I've never seen this.
Wow.
He said,
how old were you then, Terry?
I was 51. I was 51, almost 52.
Yeah.
And he said, you need to go to MD Anderson, which is, probably the greatest cancer hospital in the world. People come from all over the world to be treated there, to be treated for this disease. So, here I am just living my life, and all of a sudden this bomb gets dropped on me and my family.
Wow.
And so I ended up going to MD Anderson. I had 2 surgeries to remove the tumor and all the lymph nodes in my groin. Then I had a skin graft to close the wound on the bottom of my foot. And after I healed, I was put on a weekly injection of interferon to keep the disease from coming back. Now, interferon, at least for me, was a horrible, nasty drug. I took that weekly injection for 4 years and 7 months before the medication became so toxic to my body that I ended up in the emergency room with a fever of 108 degrees, which is usually not compatible with being alive.
Right.
The other interesting thing about the interferon is that it gave me, we've all had the flu, but the interferon for me was like having the flu every week for 5 years. So I would take those injections, and for 2 to 3 days after each injection, I felt like I had the flu. I lost 50 pounds during my therapy. I was constantly nauseous, fatigued, chilled. My ability to taste food even diminished. I could tell if something was sweet or salty, but I couldn't tell if it was a piece of steak or a piece of broccoli without looking at it. And this misery went on for 1,660 days. The one thing I learned during all my pain and suffering is that you have two choices. You can either succumb to the debilitating discomfort and misery, or you can learn to embrace it and use it to make you a stronger and more determined individual. And I chose the latter. But I want your listeners to understand that there were days that I felt so poorly and was in so much agony that I just prayed to die. I just wanted out of this life. You know, each day for me was a struggle to kind of use my mind to override the apathy and the distress that my body was feeling. And I realized that pain and discomfort can certainly beat you to your knees and keep you there if you let it. Mm-hmm. But I also came to understand that you can use your pain and suffering to make you a stronger and more determined individual. And I want people to understand that, you know, I was no better at dealing with pain and discomfort than the next person. But every day I found a way to survive with the knowledge that I need to do it again the following morning when I woke up. Mm-hmm. And for me, unfortunately, my cancer experiences didn't end with me conquering my disease. I was on the interferon for almost 5 years. Unfortunately, towards the end of the 5-year period, the melanoma came back, and my only treatment option ended up being the amputation of most of my left foot. Mm-hmm. The cancer's returned again this year in May. I had another surgery in July. They did not get it all. I'm going to have another surgery in December to try to do an old-time chemotherapy that we're basically going to put chemotherapy just into my leg with the hope that it will kill whatever cells are still there. Mm-hmm. So I understand what it's like to fight for your life. And I vowed, you know what, I'm not going to quit. I'm never going to give up. I knew the only way that cancer could win is if I gave up or I gave in to the disease. I also came to appreciate that the responsibility for altering my life, that was entirely up to me. You know, whining, complaining, and blaming. And believe me, I did that in the beginning. You know, I was looking for somebody to blame. Why did this happen to me? I'd led a good life. I've exercised. I've eaten right. But, you know, why did this happen to me? And I found that there are three constants in this whole thing. Number one, bad things are going to happen to you, and you just need to let them go. Number two, setbacks are going to occur along your journey. Whether it's you're fighting cancer, you're trying to lose weight, or you need to get an A on this test, you're going to have setbacks. And probably the thing I found out that was most important to me, and that I realized, is that life's not fair. You know, people, when I coach basketball, kids used to always say, you know, hey, that's not fair. And I used to say, that's right, it's not. Life isn't fair. You know, I mean, you're going to do everything right. You're going to lose the game, but that doesn't make you a loser. You know, you only lose if you quit. So I think, you know, you have to want to make change, and you have to commit to that change every single day. And if you do that, I think you can make progress, and you can make substantial progress in whatever you're fighting against, whether it's your mind or your body or your disease, or you're losing weight, or you want to have a good grade, whatever that ends up being. I think the things I learned are not specifically geared toward fighting a terminal illness or a chronic illness. They're things that you can apply to your everyday life.
Wow. It's just, it's overwhelming to hear of that's just the discovery of the cancer at such a young age. And then this just keeps coming back at you. And was there anything in your upbringing or your past that gave you the clue to move in this direction? Like, how did you know what to do?
It's funny. So I'm 6'8". And I played basketball. I was fortunate enough to play basketball in high school and college. And I kind of believe that the mental preparation for my personal battle against cancer actually began when I was in my teens. The summer between my freshman and sophomore year in high school, I tore cartilage in my knee and had to have surgery to remove it. It was shortly after that, or it was shortly before arthroscopic surgery was available. So I have kind of the long zipper scar on the outside of my knee. And the wound eventually, it became infected. They surmised that scar tissue did not grow into that area. So when I went back playing basketball, I had the bone-on-bone pain and discomfort. And it got to the point where my knee was swelling, and I was having to have it drained every couple weeks. So this was, unfortunately, I'm old enough. This was before MRIs and all that kind of stuff. So I had a second surgery between the summer of my sophomore and junior year, where it was an exploratory. So we don't understand why it continues to swell. We need to find out. So they went in, and what they ended up doing was taking out 25 pieces of my bone that had chipped off because the scar tissue had not grown in there and cushioned the bones when I went back to play basketball. After surgery, they put me in a cast from my hip to my ankle, and I was in that cast for the entire summer. They don't do that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and the doctor told me, he said, you know what, your basketball playing days are over, and you might not walk normally again because of all this damage you have done to the bones. But kind of like the cancer situation, I refused to go along with the doctor's predictions. I knew that I had to at least try to get back on the court. So when the cast was removed, you know, and I saw this quadricep muscle that had atrophied to something that was just, you know, how can you get around it? I mean, it just looked like skin over a bone. I mean, I had not used it for an entire summer.
Yeah.
You know, but I remember the doctor, he looked at the incision and he kind of poked around a little bit, and he proclaimed the surgery a success. And it's kind of, well, how do you know it's successful? You know, I mean, we haven't tested it. We haven't done anything like that. Mm-hmm. And he handed me a piece of paper with drawings and words about my rehab at home. You know, there was no go to a physical therapist and do your rehab and get stronger. And after he examined the wound, he shook my hand and he turned to leave the room. And I started peppering him with, you know, all kinds of questions. You know, how many repetitions should I do of these exercises? How often should I exercise? You know, what happens if the knee swells again?
Yeah.
And his reply was intended to specifically address my knee rehab, but was actually rather far-reaching in its impact on my life, especially when it came to cancer. But unfortunately, it took till I was much older until I realized what he was trying to say. And he was kind of a no-nonsense kind of guy, too. He looked right at me and he said, your body will tell you what to do. Listen to it.
Wow.
And that's what I did. You know, I went home and I started doing the exercises. And as I got stronger, I used more weight and I did more repetitions. And eventually I built the muscle back to where I was able to walk. And then walking led to jogging, and jogging eventually led to running. And I was able to, despite a third operation, rather minor operation, I was able to play basketball in high school, and I got a scholarship to play it in college. So I think that mental preparation, that, you know, I always said for me the mental aspect of my cancer battle was much more difficult than my physical battle. You know, the physical pain, you know, was constant, and, you know, you knew it was there. The mental pain, you know, when you're constantly, you're fighting your brain. You know, your brain knows your weaknesses, it knows your vulnerabilities, mm-hmm. and it attacks. You know, it'll put those thoughts into your mind, like, you know, you're not going to make this. You know, and so you not only are you dealing with the physical pain of cancer, now you're dealing with the mental and emotional part of saying, you know what, I got to stop this negativity. You know, I've got to get my brain to say, you are going to make it. So you're using resources to combat the pain. You're also using resources to combat your own brain that's also attacking you. At least that's what I found.
Yeah. So you had that experience from the younger years to know you could harken back on and say, you know, I have this tool in my toolbox, I can use this, but still to get outside your head and tell yourself a different story that is so contrary to so much evidence around you.
Right. Right. And I knew, you know, for me, you know, my brain was saying, just lay on the couch. You know, for those 3 days every week after my interferon injections, I mean, the smell of food would make me throw up. It was, like I said, imagine having the flu, but having it every week. Yeah. And feeling that nausea and stuff like that. And so, you know, you just constantly have to, I just want to lay here. I feel so horrible. I just want to lay on the couch. But I also knew that if I got up and I moved and it, I didn't work for 5 years during that time. I mean, I physically was unable to work during that time.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it was the little battles. It was, you know what? I'm going to get up and I'm going to throw a load of laundry in the wash machine, try to help my wife out and stuff like that, and I found that if I got up and moved, that I felt better. Mm-hmm. Even though my brain, was saying, hey, just lay here. You feel terrible. Just lay here. You'll be okay. No, I got to get up. I got to at least throw a load of laundry in, or, maybe I'll get the mail, or it wasn't anything big.
Yeah.
And I felt horrible not being able to participate. And the interference certainly isolated me, because of the physical side effects of the drug.
Mm-hmm.
And I even to this day, when I talk to doctors about other, who don't know me, who haven't read my chart and stuff like that, and I tell them I was on interferon, and they're like, well, you did you make it through to the whole year? Because most people only stay on it for a year.
Yeah.
I said, a year? I said, no, I almost was on it for 5 years. And they look at me like I've got 3 heads.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not possible. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't think it was either, especially when the doctor initially, said, hey, what do you think about going on this drug? And I was like, and I talked to people who I knew were on it. I mean, it's also a drug that's used for people who have hepatitis and things like that. And that's what people are on it for usually, 6 months to a year to try to get rid of, the hepatitis they have and stuff like that. Well, this was, the doctor's like, I said, well, I could probably make it for a year. I said, is that good enough? And she said, well, I'd like to see you on it for 5 years. And I looked at her like, that's crazy. You want me to have the flu every week for 5 years? I mean, that just in my mind was like, that doesn't sound like something that, and again, there were no guarantees. It was we're going to give you this drug to kick the can down the road in the hope that, in the future, there are additional therapies that could help your cancer. Because as of right now, we don't have a lot of tools in our toolbox. So here's a drug that we know is nasty. We know it's toxic. And I was in the doctor, every 3 months for blood tests. I was, I was constantly having scans and stuff like that. It's a drug that you have to be monitored very closely if you're on. So, it was, like I said, the mental part of the whole cancer battle has been much more difficult for me than the physical part of, having my leg or my foot amputated and things like that. So
I may have shared with you that I'm also a cancer survivor, and I've had,
you have, yes.
Yeah, chemotherapy. And I can relate to it's one thing to get the flu, you don't see it coming, or you might, but then to know that you're walking into it,
right,
like, with intention, that you're going to sit in that chair and have somebody give you something that could kill you. It's definitely going to make your hair fall out. It's going to make all these other things happen, guaranteed.
Right.
And we don't know if it's going to help. We don't even know, but this is the best we got. And that helpless feeling and that lonely feeling.
Yeah, that helplessness and hopeless. And the funny thing about the interferon is I gave it to myself. It was, it came in a box. I mixed a tablet with some sterile water and injected it into myself. And, so I would do it on Saturday night. So, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday were not great days. And then I'd start to feel better, Wednesday, Thursday. And, you would think Friday would be, my best day, or Saturday before. But it got to the point where I think my body knew, it's like, it's coming today, or it's coming tomorrow. And it would start to sort of marshal its resources to say, you know what, we're going to get hit with this again. So, we got to get ready. And so, there was maybe 1 or 2 days every week that I felt decent enough that I could go out of the house and I could, maybe go to the grocery store, or, on the rare case, I could go to the gym and try to work out or something like that, and then, like I said, the body almost knew. It's like, yeah, it's coming, get ready, and it would start to feel bad. And, it's like, we're preparing ourselves. And it's, the body's an amazing thing. It really is.
I'm so impressed with your demeanor. And I know that you just had another incident come up with your gallbladder recently. You're still fighting cancer. Your demeanor is very up. You're a motivational speaker. Like, where does this come from? This this source of energy and purpose.
You know, I spent some time as a police officer when I was working, and and you know, being an athlete, and I think you tend to see, you know, as you said, you know, helplessness and hopelessness. You see a lot of that, certainly being a police officer and things like that. And I think, you know, I think a couple things. Number one, I believe in God. I have a deep faith. You know, I spend time every day praying. Not that, not to take this from me, but just to give me what I need, you know, to survive today. And I spend more time praying for other people. And I think between that and, you know, I've got a wife that when I married her, she had never seen the inside of an emergency room. And since we've been married over 26 years now, and, you know, she couldn't stand the sight of blood. And I remember I had a big chunk cut out of the bottom of my foot on an outpatient basis. And she was sitting right at the foot of the table when the doctor was working. And I thought, you know, when we first got married, you could not have handled that. You could not have done that. So I am very fortunate, very blessed to have people around me that, you know, that give me that inspiration, that give me that courage, that give me the, you know what, I just have to keep going. And I've always been the kind of person that, you know, if you want to stop me, you're going to have to kill me. I mean, I'm just going to keep coming. I'm just going to keep going. You know, today's not guaranteed, or tomorrow's not guaranteed. This is all I have is today. And so I'm going to take that. I'm going to do the best I can. There are days where I'm like, man, I didn't do anything today. I felt terrible. I mean, I just had my gallbladder removed last Thursday, and, you know, I was home on Sunday, and I'm sitting there thinking, you know, I got to get out. I got to start doing stuff. You know, my wife's looking at me like, you know, cool your jets there, hotshot. You know, you just need to relax a little bit, you know, and kind of get your, you know, your bearings and stuff like that. And I don't, you know, I've always believed, you know, that that we are, you know, people always say, you know, I don't have enough time, you know, whatever that is, however they apply that. And I've always believed you do. You do have enough time. I think God or your creator or you know, Mother Nature, whatever you want to say, gives you the time to do what you're supposed to do. But I see a lot of people who live very unintentional lives. And as I said, as a police officer, I've seen a lot of people die. And I've seen a lot of people die, people that I, you know, knew through the hospital, you know, who had cancer and stuff like that. And I found the people that die peaceful deaths, those are the people that figured out their why they were here, and they lived it.
Yeah. And
the people who go, you know, kicking and screaming and want 5 more minutes or another month or whatever, those are the people that never did anything with their lives. And I'm not talking about, you know, you got to be the CEO of a company or you got to be president. I mean, we all have been, I've always thought about this. I can't imagine when I die, and dying doesn't, I'm not afraid to die. It's not something that scares me at all. But when I die, I can't imagine standing in front of our Creator and being unable to account for the gifts and the talents that I was born with that I didn't use to make this world a better place. And that's really kind of why I started Motivational Check. You know, I wanted to just put something out there, something, you know, quick, short, whether it's a saying or a video or a story that you can read, and maybe it makes your day a little bit better. And if that's the case, that's good for me. You know, I don't need to be, you know, giving speeches to, you know, tens of thousands of people. I mean, if 5 people look at this and it helps one of them, I'm good with that. You know, I've always remembered Mark Twain's comment, you know, the 2 most important days of our lives are the day we're born and the day we figure out why.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, I want people to figure out their why. I want people to live with intention, you know, and I want people to realize that, you know, we all have value regardless of, you know, where you are in life, and that we're all destined, I believe. And this has nothing to do with what you do for a living or your social status, that we are destined to live uncommon and extraordinary lives. And like I said, that doesn't mean you have a lot of money and big houses and all that stuff. You know, you could be the janitor and still live an uncommon and extraordinary life. And I don't think a lot of people do that. And you know, I mean, we can get into the whole social media, and you know, social media has been great for me with Motivational Check, but I just like talking to people. You know, I mean, it drives my wife nuts because I'll be in the emergency room and it'll be like, you know, I'll talk to the nurse, where you're from. You know, why'd you become a nurse? I mean, I spent 20 minutes with the anesthesiologist before my gallbladder surgery. You know, why'd you become an anesthesiologist? You know, I love people. I want to know about them. And, you know, if we took that step, and it's not about me, you know, I want to know about you. Tell me about you. And as you can tell, it's hard to shut me up sometimes, but you know, I just like talking to people.
I think what you do, well, I love the inspirational things that you put on Motivational Check, and then you share them in, you know, these short pieces that get you, you know, kind of thinking, planting a seed. But you do what I'm hoping to do here with Rock Bottom Syndicate, which is you help people tell their story and feel, with your authentic communication, feel like I matter. Like the fact that you had this, you know, fairly major thing happen to you this week and you didn't blow me off because you're not feeling your best, I'm sure.
Right.
You were here and I mattered to you, and that makes me feel more important in this world. And you do that for people every day. So,
well, thank you. I you know, like I said, I think we need to value people more, you know, and you know, I could have said, hey, Joyce, I just had my gallbladder taken out. Can we reschedule this? But you know what? We've scheduled this, you know, out quite a ways. And, you know, I don't feel great, but you know what? I'm sitting here talking to you. I mean, I'm not spending a whole lot of energy, and you are important to me. You know, I mean, this is something that we wanted to do together. And it's like, you know what? I'm not, because even my wife said, are you going to do this? And I said, yeah, I think I am. You know, yeah, you know, like, well, you don't feel very good. And that's okay. You know, I mean, I can do it. And that's the thing. Our bodies is, you know, you've been through cancer and stuff like that. Our bodies are incredible machines, and they can take a tremendous amount of damage and continue to go forward and continue to move forward. And I think people, they don't see that, you know, like, oh, I hurt, I got to stop. And, you know, it's like, no, you don't, you can keep going. You know, I mean, your body will tell you, I thoroughly believe your body will tell you, you know, I'm done. I need to go to bed, or I just need to sit down and rest. And you need to listen to that. But I also believe that you can keep going much more so than, you know, than people who just say, you know, oh, I got a twinge, I got to sit down, I can't do anything. Yeah, you can do a lot more.
Yeah, I agree. My experience has been the same. Terry, we're about out of time. We have just a little bit of time left. And I'm not sure if maybe in this last minute or two, can really capture your why.
My why. That's a great question. Somebody asked me a while ago how I wanted to be remembered, you know, and it was like, I don't really want to be remembered. I mean, I don't have any great, you know, without being melodramatic. I think people, you know, when I die, you know, you close the lid on my casket, you throw me in the ground, and that'll be it. I hope that the people that I touched, the lives that I touched while I was here, whatever that was, whether it was my family being a police officer, doing Motivational Check, as a cancer patient, whatever that was, that I will have made a difference in their lives. Maybe it's a difference for 5 seconds. You know, maybe it's a difference for 2 minutes. I don't know. But right now, my why is trying to help other people figure out their why, and helping them to, you know, to realize that, you know, you need to control your mind, or that it's going to control you. You know, and I believe that, you know, as long as you don't quit, you can never be defeated. And so you just need to keep going. So as long as I keep helping people find their why, I'll be good whatever time I have left.
Well, that was beautiful. And I just think you're the perfect guest for my show, for Rock Bottom Syndicate, to help people just share what they've been through. And we're not going to solve the problem for you. You got to solve it yourself. But we're here to shoulder the burden with you.
Absolutely. You're not alone. We're all in this together.
Thank you for your time today and giving it to me and making me feel so important. I really, really appreciate you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me on.
Okay.